Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Fans podcast. I'm your host, James Dillard. With me, as always, my co-host, Bailey Jackson. How you doing, Bailey?
I'm good. Excited to be here tonight and have a few guests on the show to talk about college football playoffs.
We're going to introduce our special expert panel. It's an expert panel we have with us tonight to talk about the historical 12-team college football playoffs. Congrats to the Ohio State Buckeyes. But, you know, it was cool seeing Clemson in that little poll every time they put the brackets up there through the whole playoff thing. That was pretty cool. But we have a great show, and like I say, with experts. If they're on our show and we're calling them experts, that means they're experts. But first, the Fun Fans are a proud part of the Greenville Sports Media's podcast network. If you're a true sports fan, Greenville Sports Media is perfect for you. Find various nationwide podcasts, the latest articles, and other sports media at greenvillesportsmedia.com. We can also be found on all forms of social media, just like the Fun Fans. Fun Fans podcast is the official podcast for Clemson fans.
And you don't have to be a Clemson fan, but you can eat at Reuben's Food, Sports, Spirits, and Catering for the best wings around. There's two locations in the upstate of South Carolina, 1083 Batesville Road in Greer or 11028 Anderson Road in Piedmont. You can find them at ReubensC.com. Reuben's is a great place to eat for all sports fans and a proud supporter of our podcast, and we thank them for that.
Yes, we do. We also thank Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare Services. At Ivy O'Sullivan, they're more than just chiropractors. Since 1977, this family-owned business located in downtown Spartanburg has been helping people with techniques other than the typical twisting and popping that can sometimes make people nervous about trying a chiropractor. I've been a patient my entire life. I have an appointment tomorrow. I take my own children there as well. If you have an ache or pain, give Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare a try. And if you mention the Fun Fans podcast, they will donate 100% of your initial evaluation costs to their charity of the month. So call them at 864-583-3967 or find them at ivyosullivan.com to feel better and function at your best. All right, so here we are, ready to introduce the folks we have with us tonight. All right, so I'm going to introduce Rusty, and then we're going to talk about why they're on here. So we try to get a variety of folks on here with a background. We're waiting on one more guest. Hopefully he pops on. But Mr. Former coach, which you're always a coach, Rusty Pemberton is with us this evening. You can see his Ohio State Buckeye shirt. And he's going to give us the well-rounded fan version, because he's a true fan, and I've known him for years, and he really is a true fan of both Georgia and Ohio State. And we'll get him to tell that story here in just a second. Our other guest is a former Clemson player, Nelson Welch, who was a kicker for the Tigers back in the day. So obviously being a player, and that's an expert if there ever was one. And of course, Bailey and we're experts, right, Bailey, on college football, if there was any.
Yeah, I mean, this is our podcast. We can be experts at whatever we want to.
That is correct. And hopefully we have one more, like I say, that's got some work background at the college athletic arena. So if he joins us, we'll get Bailey to introduce him, and we'll go from there. But real quick, so I'm going to go back to Coach Pemberton first of all. So tell us how in the world, again, that you are both an Ohio State and a Georgia Bulldog fan.
Right. Well, I'm from Ohio, so you from Ohio, you're a Buckeye fan.
Right.
I came to the South to go to school, and they were, people around me during football season was telling me that I couldn't just pull for Ohio State. You're in the South now. You either got to be a Tiger or a Gamecock. It just so happened that one of my good friends was a Georgia fan, and he said, you ain't got to pull for either one of them teams in the South. You can pull for the Georgia Bulldogs. And so just to make everybody mad, I said I'm a Bulldog fan, and that was the years of Herschel Walker, and they won the national championship. So what a time to pick to be a Georgia fan. But my heart is a Buckeye.
With the Buckeyes. And see,
yeah,
I know
kind of like a lot of these South Carolina fans around here. They weren't South Carolina fans till Steve Spurrier started winning some games.
Well, so I was about to say, see all that bickering between Clemson and Carolina, we might have pulled another fan, but no, he ended up going to the dark side down there with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, like I said before, too. Well, I do like Clemson, and I do like South Carolina. I pull for both those teams. I go to some of the football games at Clemson and Carolina. Just when they play each other, I don't watch that game because I'm, rooting against the team up north.
Very good, very good. So we'll give Nelson a minute to introduce himself. Like I say, he kicked for Clemson back in the day. We've had him on the show before, and so we know where his allegiance was this year, and just general excitement about the playoffs. Nelson is being a Clemson fan, and we appreciate you being on the show.
You guys, yeah, I became a Clemson fan because they gave me a scholarship. But my Clemson days go way back in the 70s. My parents got tickets, and I started going to Ibrahim soccer camp over there back in the day. And in fact, I remember when they were building the upper decks in the stadium. That's how old I am. And so great memories over there. Glad to see the Tigers get in the playoffs. Certainly win the conference, which allowed them really to get in. And I guess really Syracuse really helped them get in, helped them with the chance. But anyway, it was good to see the Tigers. And I thought they played a really good half, and unfortunately didn't play a full game. And Texas was just the better team that day.
That's true. That's exactly right. And hey, I remember when those upper decks were going up. We were the first ones to sit in that north upper back when I think I was in about high school or so. But we're going to round robin this thing, and we're going to do what some people started doing before, like the playoffs just got started. And you turn the radio on, you listen to sports talk, and everybody's already critiquing the playoffs. And maybe being not true media, I said we're going to wait till the end. And we're going to see how it plays out, and we're going to give our 2 cents worth. And we'll just go around, and everybody's going to have a chance to say what they would have done different, if anything. And we'll discuss from there. And hopefully we'll send this to the NCAA, maybe the committee, or if they're hiring all the GMs or whatever it is they're doing in college football nowadays. But I'm going to go first just to be a good example, hopefully, for everybody. Now, personally, I like 12 teams. I think 12 is a good number. Could get into, historically, there's probably too many. There's, you get in the top 5 in college football. It's usually they're grouped up in there in the top 3, 5, maybe 6 or 7. But I think just to give folks a chance, we've all lived through the Boise State versus Oklahoma Fiesta Bowl days, and the Central Florida versus Auburn and going undefeated. So you throw 12 in there, and some conference champions just to give them a chance, so everybody can say they had a chance. So I like the 12. And I like the way it's set up. The only thing that I would change personally would be if I would base the seeding on the ranking, okay, instead of jumping conference champions up to the top 4 seed. But what I would do to reward the conference champion, because I feel like you have to reward the conference champion. If you don't reward the conference champion, there's really no sense in playing the game. And of course, there's talk out there about all kind of crazy stuff going on with that, but we would be on here forever. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight. But the conference champion will get the home game, so they get seeded, and the conference champion, like Clemson, Clemson bumped a team that was in the top 12 out. So I like the way they did it. I like the way they chose the 12 teams, but I would seed based on the rankings. So 1 through 4 would be the top 4 teams based on the rankings. But the conference champion, wherever they fell in the seeding, if they didn't get the bye, they would get a home game. All right, so this is what I mean. If that would have happened this year, Oregon was number 1, Georgia number 2, Texas was ranked number 3, and Penn State was number 4. Those were the top 4 teams coming out of the final ranking. They would have gotten the byes, and then the first round games would have been number 5 Notre Dame versus Clemson, because Clemson, by winning, would have jumped into the playoffs, and Notre Dame would have had to come to Clemson because that's their reward for winning the conference championship. Ohio State would have had to go to Arizona State, even though Ohio State's number 6. They go play a number 12 Arizona State because that's where they were ranked. Arizona State was ranked number 12, but Arizona State gets to host because they won the conference champion. And then number 7 Tennessee gets to host number 10 SMU, because that's just the higher seed hosting. Neither one of those won the conference. And number 8 in Indiana has to go to number 9 Boise. That's what I would have done different, the seeding based on where they are. And but give the home game to the conference champion or the higher ranked team.
too confusing.
You think that was confusing? That was worse than it was. Hey, Brian.
Yeah, well, James likes to make things a little more jumbled up sometimes. So if you want to, we'd like to welcome Brian Dillon to the program. But I will say this: I like the idea, James. I like the fact that what we've talked about on this program many times, that they're kids playing these games. Everybody likes to put all this pressure on these guys, but they're really just big kids that are playing college football. And so you could have a bad game.
Yes.
And you can still get in the college football playoff. But at one point, Clemson still had a chance to be one of the top 4 seeds, and I don't think that would have been correct. Okay, because they backdoored into the playoff, and they kind of got the seed they deserved based on what they had done throughout the season. But I do like the fact that, maybe it needs to be reshuffled after the first round. Like the NFL does that. Why couldn't college football do that? I think you need to reward the top 4 teams and say, y'all are the top 4 seeds. But then if you were a conference champion, yeah, you might be the 12th seed, but you get a home game. Mm-hmm. But then it's going to be reseeded after the first round.
After that.
And then possibly done by geographical location based on where you are and where that bowl game is you would go to. All right. Real quick, I'll introduce Brian Dillon. He hopped on here. Brian is the athletic director at Nation Ford High School. He is also a Buckeye. We have 2 Buckeyes on here right now.
Oh, wait.
And so the Buckeyes are happy, but Brian also has some collegiate experience working in college athletics. And so welcome to the show, Brian. Better late than never.
Thank you, Bailey. Yeah, my apologies putting Blake to bed, and wanted to make sure I got on here, but I appreciate you having me join it.
And Brian was actually at the national championship game.
Oh, nice.
I was in Atlanta. I didn't make it. Those prices skyrocketed the morning of, but we tried to get in. But once they tripled in price after 9 a.m., that was all she wrote.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Well, who wants to go next? Those are my suggestions. I was vulnerable.
I'll go because number one, James, when I coached you way back in the day, you kind of learned a little bit of something, I think. You're on target with what I was thinking. I do like the 12-team playoff system. And to me, it does, like you were saying, it does get the 5 or 6, excuse me. It does get the 5 or 6 best teams. Mm-hmm. When you were at 4 teams, you might have missed out. And like you said before, Ohio State would have not been in the 14 playoff, losing to Michigan and losing another one earlier to Oregon. So I think you get 5 or 6 of the best teams in there. The thing that I don't agree with is the seeding that you talked about. I think, if you are a conference champion, you get in. And then let the committee, they're smart people, let the committee decide 1 through 12. Mm. And then you're right, take the top 4, they get the buys, and still based on seeding is your other 4 teams are home seed in the playoffs. I just I don't think you need to add any more. You add more and you might water it down a little bit and have more blowouts, maybe non-competitive games. But I do like the 12-team playoff system. I do like the automatic berths for the Power 5 schools. Don't necessarily agree that they got the bye, but I like the 12 playoff system.
So that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I'm kind of all over the place, just being a former player. Obviously, more football is good. I would like to, honestly, there's a few things that I liked. I did like the home games. I thought that was awesome, and the atmospheres were great. I feel like that would be more home games would be cool to me. And I do like the fact that if you play an extra game, then you win, you should be, granted somewhere obviously in the playoffs, but also maybe even up higher because you've played an extra game. And I wouldn't mind even seeing a play-in game like they do in basketball. And not that would get those winners in the 12, but you could do that. With the buys. So I'm kind of all over the place. You know, if you're going to go to 12 and mix it up, it's all about viewership. It's all about eyeballs on TV. And heck, we're paying these players a lot of money. So more games, they got to earn their money. So
That's right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tweet it too much, but again, one of the things I really liked was the home games. You know, if you had 2 rounds of home games, I thought would be really cool. But then you're breaking up the big bowls, and those are massive dollars. But anyway, I enjoyed it. I thought this first year was really good, and with all the other guys, what they're saying is really be competitive on how you seed and really get the matchups, regional matchups. You know, Oregon and Clemson, that wouldn't be that'd just be hard for a fan. You know, you got to get the fan back in this thing too, where kids and parents can go to games, and more regional games, more closer games you can have, I think will be beneficial for long term.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk out there about the geographics, and maybe when it comes to picking, once they start going to the bowls, when Texas played in the Cotton Bowl, that was like a home game to them, whatever. I 100% agree. The home game atmosphere, I went to the Clemson game in Texas, and it was great. I mean, it was, and especially for them, it was really great, but it was a really cool experience. And there's talk out there about doing that as well. But, you know, getting the seedings and the matchups and all that stuff right, and if throwing geographics in there would be, that would make it even more difficult for sure. A lot of variables.
Yeah, I don't think I would agree with the geographic aspect of it within the playoffs. I think once you get to that point, and I know we want to be able to have as many fans attend these as possible, but once you get to the playoff, I think you just have to go with some sort of format that matches up the best teams. And once you try to get into geographics like college basketball's NCAA tournament, then you can kind of get away from trying to get your top teams what they've earned. I did feel for Oregon, they ended up with the toughest because of having the 2 that jumped into the top 4, Boise and Arizona State. Because of that dropped down Tennessee, Ohio State a little bit further and put that in with them. Whereas, you know, when they go undefeated throughout a regular season, they ended up with what would have been the 2 toughest to match up with most likely. And so, you know, that made a big difference. But I do like the idea of another home game. I think those teams that earn those buys, some sort of home game would be really good for them, because all 4 of them lost. And that was either rust or neutral site. But I think earning those top 4 spots has to mean something.
Or they lost because the seeding was, you know,
right,
not necessarily proper. Let's just say
right.
The home teams won. Tell me if I'm wrong, but when in the first round, all home teams won, and then in the next round, every team that had a bye lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of crazy. All right, Bailey, I think you're it.
Well, I mean, I gave you my 2 cents worth. I can fix the conference championship dilemma using a middle school model that our middle schools follow sometimes. They have simple. 2 divisions, East and West, and at the end of the year, they build in the last regular season date is a East versus West. Number 4 in the East plays number 4 in the West. Number 3 plays number 3. And so what you could do is you could have, in the ACC, for example, the number 1 team could not play that game and go to the conference championship. And then 2 could play 3, and so on down the list. That gives everybody the same number of games. And then whoever wins 2 and 3 gets to go to that game and play the number 1 seed. But that would have to take, I mean, that's like a 5-year plan, because those schedules are done pretty much. Right. But, you know, the idea that you would sit out your conference championship game because if you lose, you might be out of the playoff. That, to me, that doesn't seem like the the intent of the conference championship.
Well, and anything that is done within a conference, because it came out earlier this week where Phillips with the ACCs proposed something that seems weird and off the wall, but sounds similar to what you just said. But if a conference, if we're talking about a 12-team playoff and how it affects getting into the playoffs, it's really, unless they all do it, it's not, I'm going to use the word fair. Nothing's ever fair, but it's definitely not balanced. If one conference does some quirky thing and the other 4 or 5 are doing what they've always done, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is that eventually in 20 years, we may not have any conferences.
Word.
And we may just have, you create your own schedule and you have an RPI and a ranking, and that's who makes the playoffs at the end of the year.
So instead of everybody talking Notre Dame into joining a conference, it's going to be the other way around?
Yeah. As long as you can get your own television deal with NBC, you can be, you can survive doing that.
You can do whatever you want. Well, all right. So it kind of sounds like we don't really have it figured out, guys, unfortunately, but that's not a surprise.
Well, things complicate things. It's fun, but it's just so many variables. The 4-team playoff, I think, was you took the top 4, but then you go, you're going to leave somebody out, and you're going to leave somebody out in the 12 too. But
well, you're going to leave somebody out if you go to 16. There's always going to be that debate.
They're going to say
whenever the cutoff is, who's the next team?
Well, let's just be real. And right this year, Ohio State they were ranked 6 in the last rankings. Anybody goes past about 7, I don't see anybody going outside of 7 or 8. Anyway, that's a different conversation. But
yeah, that's what I was saying. I think with the 12 team, you're going to have your 5 or 6 or 7 best teams in it.
Right.
And yeah, that's what I liked about the 12 team. You don't need to go more than that, I don't think.
We say that now, but as if parity continues to increase in college football, it could be like the NFL, and we could be wrong. But the most important thing on this show is the fan experience. So I love the home games, and if they change, the real powers that be change something, more home games would be awesome. And we definitely got to hear from Brian about the experience at the game, even though it didn't make it inside, because we understand you're a public educator, and we can't afford the fries at the game, probably much less the ticket. But what was it like in Atlanta?
There was a lot of energy in Atlanta. Both sides were very well represented, and there were probably as many fans outside of the game trying to get in as there were that went to the game. One of those cliches sometimes, but that was probably very accurate. So trying to get in there, the fan experience was fantastic. Trying to do a lot of those things, going through the convention center right across the street. They had a pregame thing that was right in the Home Depot area, right off the stadium. And there was so much energy that was going on. They had both bands perform prior to the game. Lots of fans there all throughout the day. So just a lot of excitement all around the area from both sides. And it was a great experience. A lot of interaction, a lot of really good interactions from both sides. Both fan bases were very mutually respectful. I'm sure as the day wore on, it probably got a little crazier, but you talk about the price of food. It was actually probably more expensive in those fan experiences than it was in the stadium, because over at Mercedes-Benz, they do that fan experience thing where they try to keep those prices low. And I did see some numbers of what concessions were inside the game, and they were very affordable. That's one of the things that they do really well at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, whether it's for the Falcons or Atlanta United or concerts. They often do really well with their concession prices.
Well, that's nice of them.
That would be nice.
$4,000 ticket.
Well, yeah, we greatly appreciate that. But no joke, that is good. Bailey, you realize we've had a guest that was been at the national championship. This is 2 years in a row. Last year we had the Owens family, Coach Bill Owens. Some of you guys know him. His family was at last year's Natty.
This is becoming a thing.
Look at there. It's almost like a real show. Hey, but speaking of the show, do we got 2 seconds to give us a basketball update? They'll just have to sit through Bailey's basketball update real quick.
Oh, yeah, they're rolling now. They won again yesterday at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I feel bad because I know Coach Mike Young well, and he's a great guy. But, man, he lost his whole roster after last year through transfers, including a kid that used to play for me at Clover. It's just sad the way college athletics is going, but Clemson wins again. They're playing really well. I really expect them to be ranked again here real soon. It's like 7 out of 8 they've won. So
what's keeping them from being ranked?
I really don't know. I think it's the perception of the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah.
I like it. And you know, they beat the teams are good. They're just not great. You know, they're not bad teams. They're just not great teams, and they're not playing in the SEC or the Big Ten like everybody wants to talk about. The Gamecocks, who beat Clemson in overtime, haven't won an SEC game yet.
Yeah.
So it is tough.
Well, it could be Clemson and Duke playing for the championship, right? Don't they?
Yeah,
play
and that's in a couple weeks. I think it's on February the 8th.
Yeah.
It's been sold out since the preseason. Of course, my son's like, well, let's go to that game. I said, can you go to that one, buddy? we can go to the Virginia Tech at Clemson game, but not the one, the Duke game. But I think they have a week off now. They play next Saturday at NC State.
Either way, it's always great to be a fan. Guys, we appreciate you being on the show. Nelson, Coach Dean, Ryan, nice to meet you. Got a great show with the listeners. Somebody's going to share this with the NCAA and the CFP, and or maybe our Chinese spies will send it to them. All right. So thanks again for checking us out each and every Sunday. Don't forget to click subscribe on the Fun Fans Podcast YouTube channel, as well as your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media, and please share. Reach out to become a sponsor. On behalf of the Fun Fans Podcast, Jay Thriller Entertainment, Greenville Sports Media, and Bailey Jackson.
Hey, always enjoyed it. Thanks everybody for being here. Go Tigers.
Appreciate it.